All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Simmons. I'm the Director of Parent and Family Programs here at Auburn University. Today, we're joined by Ruthie Spears and Judith Sanders, the Director and Assistant Director of Academic Advising here at Auburn. And they are going to walk you through the process of what your students have to expect over the next month or so as they prepare for advising and registration for the spring 2026 semester. I'm not going to waste any more of your time listening to me talk. I'm going to turn it over to Ruthie and Judy.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. Do we need to wait for the recording button? It's nice to see everyone
Yeah.
here.
Sorry about that, Ruthie. It looks like it is recording for some reason.
Oh,
It didn't indicate it, but it is.
perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
You're
Thanks
good.
for being here, everybody. We're happy to spend a little time with you and appreciate you sharing your students with us. It is certainly our joy to support them in being successful while they're here at Auburn. So excited to get to meet you as well today. So, real quickly for some introductions, Judy and I both work in our Office of University Advising. So that means that we get to support our advising teams here at Auburn. But in past lives, we've both done some advising ourselves, and so I have worked personally with our exploratory students in the exploratory major, as well as our redeciding students and our learning community students in the past. So always love getting to just support them in what their questions are, getting ready for registration, and we're excited to share with you. So I'll let Judy take it and introduce herself too.
Thanks, Ruthie. And I echo, Ruthie's welcome and just, we are always so excited to support your students. It's really, we do a lot of administrative things, but then when we get to actually interact one-on-one with students, you can just tell the difference in our day. So just know that we love students and we're just excited to what we can bring to them. So again, I too have had a variety of experiences in academic advising. I've been associated with advising on Auburn's campus for 24 years. And I started out in the College of Human Sciences and I was happy to serve students there. Then I had the pleasure to be able to serve students again in the College of Liberal Arts for a number of years. I moved away from college advising into more of university or central processing when I became the retention programming coordinator, and then have since moved through a variety of, we'll just say, job titles, not really job descriptions, but job titles to become the assistant director for university advising. We are just thrilled to be able to support academic advisors as they support your students. But I also want you to hear us say that if you ever need us or your student needs us individually, we are happy to help. And we can share an email address toward the end of the session where the students can reach out if needed.
Absolutely. Thanks, Judy. And today, just real quickly, Kevin had asked us to share just about how advising works at Auburn, and you may be familiar with some of that. So we just wanted to give a snapshot of how our advising units work and our model, as well as just talk a little bit about preparing for registration and some timelines and what that might look like, and give just some pointers. You're probably wondering, well, what can I do to best support my student while they're here at Auburn? So we have a couple of suggestions and thoughts there. And then most importantly, if you have questions, we certainly want to answer those. So at the end, we'll do some Q&A time and look forward to answering any questions that you might have for us. So first, quickly, just to let you know, if you don't already, your student does have a specifically assigned advisor. So every college at Auburn has their own advising unit, their whole structure. Actually, they'll have a director, an advising team, and a specific advisor is assigned to work with your student and support that their academic success and help them with planning for curriculum, but it's so much more than that too. I always like to make sure everyone understands while an advisor's role is to help students navigate academic processes and navigate their curriculum to graduation, they're also there as a referral agent to help the student know what resources are available for them, regardless of what questions or needs they may have. So the answer for you, for your student, can always be, why don't you check with your advisor? They're not going to always be the expert in that subject matter, but they are going to know who is and how to connect your student with that. And so, so know that your student always has that person in their corner. They may also have other advisors. If your student's in a minor, they will have a minor advisor, for example. There are some special population advisors. For example, if your student is an ROTC or has is a college athlete or something like that, they may have some other advisors as well. If you ask your student, "Hey, who is your advisor?" and they say, "I'm not sure," that is okay. They can find that information in a couple of different places. They've probably gotten some emails from that person, so that I could add that as well. But in AU Access, which is our main system, there is an advisor's card they can see in there. We're also going to really show you a lot. We are so excited. Judy is our administrator for Advise and Assist, which hopefully you've heard about that. That's our platform that we use to just connect students with all the things. They can easily connect with people, resources, appointments, and Judy's going to show you all that, what that looks like. But that's a place that they can go and see who their advisors are, as well as in DegreeWorks, our degree audit tool. So there's a couple different places they can go to see who their advisor is. But just to reiterate, if your student's just hitting some brick walls, not finding where they need to go, we are always here to help connect them as well. So always feel free to send them our way anytime. We definitely do that often and enjoy doing that. So that's always an option. Wanted to paint a picture of the advising timeline so you can have a sense of what that looks like. So for fall, just to go ahead and talk about the right here, right now, we really give students August time to transition, to find things. And we're here. Our advising team are there to support students as needs arise. Sometimes students are making some schedule adjustments or things like that in the beginning. So the advisor is more kind of there. They're probably reaching out to your student with a couple of messages saying, "Hey, how's it going?" Touching base types of things. And then really when we get into September and October, different colleges will have different timelines, but that's when we really focus on proactive registration advising, when your student is going to probably get an email from their advisor. Now, there are some colleges that will bake it into an orientation class that your student is in. So it looks a little different depending on what college your student is in. But their advisor is going to be connecting with them, either saying, "Hey, I'm going to see you here," or "I need you to make an appointment with me to talk about registration for spring." They're also going to be just checking in on how are things going for fall. That's always going to be a two-part conversation with your student. And so that's been happening. It's continuing to happen. That's a great question to ask your student of, "Hey, have you met with your advisor yet for spring registration?" If they haven't, don't be alarmed. Especially, I imagine many of you may have younger students, because when you register is based on the number of earned credit hours you already have. Our upperclassmen will register first. They also are registering for different classes most of the time than what our freshmen are. So that's not a bad thing. That just really makes it work for everyone. But because of that, some of our advising offices will kind of send out their appointment campaigns to meet with their older students first, because they'll go first. So don't be alarmed if your student says, "Oh, I haven't." Just remind them to be checking their email, and we're going to show you some other resources where they can know exactly what to expect. And in November, that is always when registration will be. The first Monday in November is going to kick off registration for spring. So if your student says, "Well, I don't really know when I register," that information is just being made available this week, and they can access that in AU Access. There's a registration and advising card, and their advising teams are going to be communicating with them about this, but they can see exactly what day and time they specifically register. We sort of parse it out so that everyone's not trying to get in the system all at the same time. We can all imagine that would not be a good thing. And so they just sort of like have different groups that are assigned specific times. So I would go ahead and encourage your student to go on AU Access, look at their registration advising card to see when they register, and go ahead and mark that on their calendar, have that day and time. Now, some of you, your student may say, "But I'm in class at that time." Happens all the time. Your student can handle that in different ways. There's some classes where you can have your computer open and do it real quick. There are some classes where you can't do that, and you need to wait till right after that class. Some students will talk to their professor about it and say, hey, is it okay if I just have my computer on the side and try to do this really quick? Professors are, they always appreciate being consulted and in the know. So just that's a great conversation to have with your student and help them kind of figure that out. But even if they have to wait, it's not the end of the world. It's just as soon as they can would be good for them to go ahead and get in there and register. Now, I focused on fall, but just to give you the timelines too to adapt this for spring, very similar. January, settling in. February, March, that's when you're going to have that proactive registration advising where your student's going to want to connect with their advisor. And then in April is when they will register for actually summer and fall if your student's going to take classes in the summertime. So just to kind of give you, that's a cadence that you can expect. It's a regular cadence that your student can get used to and comfortable with so that they know when they need to be watching out for different communications and preparing for different tasks related to that. I did want to throw out some of your students may be considering changing their major, and that is certainly something, if that's what they're thinking about, that's a great thing to go ahead and be asking questions. We have a lot of resources available to students to help them evaluate where they currently are, to look at options of what else is available. They even have assessments for them to help kind of determine what might be good choices for them. Lots of resources with that. If that is the case for your student, do encourage them to go ahead and ask some questions and do that investigation now. If they can sort of come to some conclusions or good plans before they register, that is definitely to their advantage because a lot of times our Exploration Center will support those students. They can help them find classes that will fit across majors when possible. That's not always possible, but when it is, they are equipped to help students navigate that. Or if they are going, they know what they want to do. They've done their homework. They've asked questions. They can certainly submit to change their major. And I'm going to show you on the advising website in just a second where they can go to do that and get some more information as well. But just want to encourage to go ahead and be asking questions. You know, the more they can sort of discover and figure out before registration, it's really going to be to their benefit. We wanted to touch base on a couple of advising resources that we have. I've mentioned AU Access several times. That's where they'll get, again, that registration information. It'll show them when they register. We talked about that. It'll also show them, you know, does it say you're ready to register or do you still need to meet with your advisor? Or what's your status? It'll also indicate there's a holds section. And if your student has a hold that will prevent registration, they want to go ahead and know that, right? So that they can go ahead. It'll give them some information of what that is. That's also something that's available in Advise and Assist so that they can connect with that office, do what needs to happen to get that hold resolved before registration. So that won't trip them up on registration day. Your student has probably mentioned DegreeWorks in certain colleges. This is our degree tracking tool. Some colleges use it more heavily than others, especially earlier on in the academic career. So your student may have gotten a curriculum resource, or they may have an advising Canvas course, or it's a good idea to ask your student of, hey, when you work with your advisor, what do you guys look at to track your degree? Let's look at it, you know, ask some questions. That's a great thing. Your student's going to get the most out of their advising appointment if they've already done a little thinking beforehand. I 100% guarantee you, your advisor, regardless of who it is going to ask them to tell them about how your semester is going now. If the semester ended today, where would you fall in your classes? What academically, grade-wise, what are they looking at? Are you enjoying them? That's going to be part of the conversation, as well as let's figure out what you want to take next semester. And if your students had the chance to go ahead and look at that curriculum and see what those options are, it's just helpful that rather than going in blind, they can know what questions they might have. They could go ahead and put together a plan of what they think they might want to do, and the advisor can give them some advice on that. A lot of times, students are great at using the resources out there Most of the time, the plans they put together are great. The curriculums are built in a way to guide students in a scaffolding method. So most of the time it's great, but they may have a suggestion of, I don't know if you want to take those two together. I would do this one first. It will prepare you for that one to take next. Those types of things that that the advisor can certainly add. I want to share with you our academic advising website. This is a great place for students. It's also a great place for you if you're trying to help your student find some information. Our goal with this page has been to pull a lot of information together in one place for you to find. So it's we have a lot of Allbee links. So aub.ie/academic advising. If you're trying to find something, sometimes you can just put aub.ie/ type whatever it is, and a lot of times it'll pop up. We use a lot of Allbee links here at Auburn. But for this one specifically for advising, I wanted to show you a couple of pages. If your student doesn't know how to connect with their advisor, they're like, well, I don't know if I've heard from my advisor. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to make an appointment. That's okay. They can come to this homepage here, and if they select the college that they're in, and your student is a current student, it's going to tell them exactly how registration advising works in their college. So for nursing, for example, all first semester students and any students with less than a 2.0 are required to attend advising. They're going to get an email with instructions on how to schedule. What that means most of the time is that they're going to get a link in that email that they just click on that link and they schedule directly from there to make it really easy. It's also going to give at the bottom some other information if they need to connect sooner. Now, if you look at this and your student doesn't fall in the population that is required to meet with their advisor, it doesn't mean they can't, and it doesn't mean they shouldn't. It is always a good idea for students to meet with their advisor at least once a semester to talk about the classes that they're planning to register for, just to check in, just to make sure the advisor doesn't have any thoughts on what they're thinking about doing. But that's where they can go to find out how to connect with their advisor in that appointment if they aren't sure already. Many of your students will already know. They would have already gotten an email about how to do that. Also wanted to point out two more things. If you are the parent or friend of a student who's considering changing their major, this page has a lot of great resources and information and kind of how to connect. Sometimes students really they're kind of considering all types of things, or they don't know where to start. That student really would benefit from meeting with the Exploration Center, and all the instructions for how to connect are right here. If your student is really wanting to know more about their current major in terms of what career options do I have, this is going to guide them that their current advisor can help them with that. If they want to know about a different major in their college, again, they can connect with their advisor. If they want to know about a major in a different college, they can actually schedule to meet with an advisor in the new college, and this is going to show them instructions for how to do it. We tried to take out all the guesswork and what's the best way to connect with an advisor depending on where you are in the process. And then at the bottom, if your student's ready, they've done their research, they feel good and confident in their decision, this is the form they can submit to change their major, and the new college will take it from there. They need to make sure they're always checking their Auburn email regularly, but they'll get the additional next steps. They can also learn what those next steps look like by clicking on the college that they're going to change into. So just wanted to share those. There's some other things. If your student's looking at adding a minor, they also can do that from this page as well. But one of the big things we wanted to highlight is our Advise and Assist. We've just launched our app this summer. We're so excited, and Judy is going to walk you all through what that looks like from our desktop version.
Great. So Ruthie and I did not warn you that both of us can talk really fast and put out a lot of information. So I really appreciate the questions that are coming in, and we promise to get to all of those. We tell our freshmen when we do prep for Camp War Eagle before you guys even come to camp that we will not go away until we've answered your questions or made a connection with you so that we can answer. So don't want anybody to feel nervous that we're not going to get back to you. So anyway, we are so excited about all of the new, I call them toys in Advise and Assist for students, but it's all of the new opportunity that's there for students. So for quite a while, we've had this platform where students simply were able to go in and make appointments, and whether it's for advising or tutoring. And then advisors were able to keep notes there about all their appointments, be able to have a really good background of when they meet with your student the second, third, fourth, fifth time. They already know what they've talked about. So, but we added a lot of functionality over the summer. So if you're a student, and I just want to just really ask you to encourage your student, if they have not downloaded the Advise and Assist app, please ask them to do so. Right here on page is a QR code that they can scan and download. Now, I was the parent of a student. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. Ruthie is the parent of a student. And so, many times we want to get into those resources and utilize them ourselves. You could download the app, but you won't be able to actually get into the app. So really, this is a great place to ask your student to download it and show it to you. Explore it with your student so that your student will be able to have all of those resources in their pocket on the phone. But everything that they can do on this app, they also can do on a desktop version. And we're going to show you functionality from the desktop version today. It's much easier to display our computer than it is our phones. So anyway, but again, if they simply scan this QR code, or we've provided the actual iOS or Google Play links there so that you can get to the correct Play Store. But if they scan this QR code, it will direct them to the correct Play Store for their device. So again, it's awesome. That's all I can say. So there's a way they can ask for assistance. They can make appointments. We're going to go through a bunch of this. They can find their class schedule. We did have a little technology glitch at the beginning of fall semester. The very first day, we had a period of time where AU Access kind of hiccuped, and I don't know about any other student, but I wouldn't have known where my classes were, or wouldn't have known even what my classes were. And so we were able to direct everyone to this app, and they were able to go and find their classes. So talking about classes, one of the beautiful things about that, so Ruthie, you don't have a class schedule, so it doesn't really help us much to go there, but they'll be able to see a list of their classes here. And then they can also, if they were to go to the schedule view, it comes up in a calendar or grid version. But go back to that list view. If it were there is actually a link on every class that will take them and give them walking instructions to their class. So if they've enabled their location, their current location there, they'll get walking directions from where they are currently up to the building door of their next class. So many times when you are new, or even in your sophomore or junior year, if you just not had a class in a particular building, or it's a new building and you're not sure where that building is or what we've named it, it's a great way to find it. So, but just to think about, Ruthie was talking about appointments, and a student can go here, they can make an appointment just using that blue button up in the top. But many of your students have been invited to make an appointment with their academic advisor. So right under that file folder where you're seeing appointment invites, Ruthie has been invited to the Planning for Camp War Eagle advising session that we had back in the summer. Okay, so this is kind of an old invite, but it's a great illustration here where your student may very well have been invited to come see their academic advisor. And all they needed to do was click on that invite, click on that blue button, takes them where the availability that the advisor has set up would display here. They would choose an option, they would scroll down, they would hit submit, and they would have their appointment. It is that simple. The more challenging part of that is not about technology. It's about human nature, where I get this invitation and I wait and I don't act quickly enough. And then maybe an appointment isn't available when I would really like for it to be. So really, if you encourage your student, if they already have an invitation to make an appointment with their academic advisor, to go ahead and do that now. if they've not already done so. That's super important for them to acknowledge that that's part of their responsibility. Again, we've already talked about class schedule. We'll let Ruthie get logged back in. There we go. There's a time on our side, there is a time issue, so we have to be really careful when we're doing demo. But we want you to see, we have built so many opportunities for your students to make connections here, resources. Ruthie's hovering it. So let's start with people first, Ruthie. This is another place where your student can find who their academic advisor is, and not just their academic advisor in their college, but if they are in the honors college, their honors advisor will be listed here and say honors advisor. If they have, I'm trying to think of other advising types, Ruthie, you may have something to throw in there.
Our ROTC advisors?
ROTC advisors, the Veterans Resource Center, any special population that your student is part of is very likely to have an advisor attached there. But we want to be really clear that for registration, your student needs to meet with their academic advisor in their college. It doesn't help to go meet with let's say the minor advisor if you really need to know about your full major. Okay, so just make sure that they're doing that. So if you go back, Ruthie, that you're great, you're hovering there. If you go to places, so you're thinking about, well, what kind of resources are available to my student? We have built out lots and lots of resources here. Now, they could go all over the Auburn University website and find these resources, but we want Advise and Assist to be the one-stop shop for students. We want it to be their first destination to think about what they need. So if I think I need help for accessibility, Ruthie had clicked on there. If she clicks there, she gets the information about the office accessibility. That first link, again, are those walking instructions to their office, an email address if the student wants to reach out, their website, their phone number, and their hours of operation, all in one place. Again, if they'll download the app, it's all in their pocket. They don't even have to get to their laptop or their desktop to do this. So go back, Ruthie. Thank you. But also some of the information, Ruthie, maybe go to academic assistance and tutoring. You can see here we have a wealth of tutoring opportunities, and some students do not. And I already know one I need to add here too. We added a new tutoring opportunity last week, and so I need to go in here and enter that. But if they're looking for academic coaching, they need help with time management, they need help with some study skills. That's what academic coaching is. So they would be able to make that appointment or be able to make that connection here. I would just encourage your student, it may sound boring to your student maybe, but if they would just scroll through this list of resources and identify what's there. So on that left-hand side, what Ruthie's scrolling through, those are the major categories. And then when she clicks on one, what you're seeing are different subcategories there so that they can look at that. Maybe your student is interested in study abroad even. Ruthie, if you scroll down to study abroad, I have to remember what global, there we go. So you can connect here with Auburn Abroad office. If you need career assistance, that's one of the really robust areas. They go to career, and every college has a link here for career information, as well as the Exploration Center, which we think really is an awesome place for students to connect if they simply just don't know right now. And that's an okay place to be. So those are resources, those are places that students could go for information. But maybe your student says, hey, I'm gonna go ask for assistance. I know I have a question and I need to ask a specific office. So they can click on create and ask for assistance. They choose their reason. They can go here. Maybe they need help changing their major. They need help with career. They need help about, let's say they were a transfer student and they were not admitted to the honors college because they were not here as a freshman, but they want to apply for the honors college. They could find out about the honors college application process right here in the middle of this screen. This will automatically, as soon as they send us, so let's say they're up at 3 in the morning, doing things, they can add a comment here if they want to, but as soon as they hit that submit button, they will receive an email with a wealth of information from that office within just seconds. That email's coming. In many cases, it will also flag that office, and someone during business hours is responsible to actually reach out to your student to connect, to make, to get additional information, be able to help provide additional support. Not in all cases, but in many cases, an ask for assistance will connect you to a human. That's one of the things about the technology I just want to throw out here. We were working really hard to connect your student to a human more quickly and more effectively. We want to connect them to the right human. We are not using technology to replace the human touch on Auburn's campus. We just want to guide them to the right place in the most quick manner that we can. So Ruthie, if you close out there, journeys, your student may have been invited to a journey. In fact, I can promise you, if you had a freshman student come in through Camp War Eagle this year, they were invited to a journey. After camp, we enrolled every freshman student in a journey with just a list of those items that they needed to follow up on post-camp. Maybe they signed a letter of understanding about their health form. We also knew they needed to order books or, secure books or whatever all of those items were. I think there were about 11 steps in that journey. Not really sure, but there would be a list, and then they check them off as they do them. This is a great way for you to explore with your students. Say, hey, are you in any journeys? And if they are, then you can kind of help them understand, well, I think you already told me you've already done that. And they can just go ahead and check off that journey list. If you're a list maker, if your student's a list maker, this is for you. That's how I function in life, or with lists. Ruthie is as well. But you see a lot here of journeys that are there. If you are interested in exploring the library, maybe you were on the Auburn campus years ago, as I was, and we used to do these library tours or scavenger hunts. Well, now this is online. So these are all the steps that would have been in an Explore the Library tour, or so a student can do that on their own here. So lots to explore. They simply add the journey, and like I said, they get to preview it before, and they simply add that journey, and then that does notify someone in that office, though, that these journeys have been added, and they might also reach out to that student. So, okay, Ruthie, you mentioned holds before. One of the things that Ruthie and I both have worked over the years, but particularly AU Access changed in its appearance last year, and we realized that holds were simple. We didn't think they were just visible enough to students. So we have holds here. If your student were to have a hold, it will be listed here in Advise and Assist for them. Most all holds. I will say there's a slight caveat there. But it will also give them direction about how to resolve the hold. It's not just a list of, you have a registration hold. Well, who put the registration hold on me? And why do I have a registration hold? And how can I get rid of that? Lots of times that may be a small bill that's due, and the student cannot register until that bill is due. Maybe that's been a parking ticket. I mean, I'm just talking, sometimes you paid tuition, but what other bill has cropped up in the meantime? You would find that right here. We are beginning to, I'm moving down, Ruthie, we are beginning to communicate more with students through notes rather than email. We are wanting to send our student pretty much, not quite monthly, but we were coming close until registration. We don't want to over communicate with students, like send them too many emails. So we are starting to use notes, because a student can return to a note and get the information that we want them to have, rather than having to either, dig through, an email account and maybe not be able to find it. Or I don't know about you, but when I'm done with that email, particularly if it's on my phone, I'm going to swipe and I'm going to delete. And then the students deleted information they wanted to return to. So we are working hard to begin to use notes as email. Checklist, maybe they have to-dos, things that they needed to do. These are coming from some journeys that Ruthie is registered in as an example. So if they had due dates, those would, rise to the top with a due date there, as you see. So lots of information here. Students can also add their own to-do here. Maybe your student is a list maker and you want to help them be able to create that list with days. So they could say, download the Advise Assist app. There you go, Ruthie. I love the plug. And by what day do they need to do it? You could help them have a time. They could add that to their personal to-do list. Okay. We also know Canvas is important to students. We have a direct link out to Canvas. And so so they can direct link back and forth. They can favorite some of these or that's an awkward word for me, but basically they can like them and add them. Auburn Answers. We have been so excited about our relationship with SGA. And so we want to connect our students to SGA. And so SGA has a wonderful functionality here called Auburn Answers. And it's basically a student can ask a question about any of these topics and someone is going to get back to them. The idea is that it would be within 24 hours, but they say occasionally it'll be a little longer, but they also tell us that for the most part, it's within the day. But let's say they wanted to ask a question about, any of those lists, but that's outside of our platform, but we want to link them there because we want them to be able to see our platform as a one-stop shop. They may have already downloaded the Auburn app. Study buddies are a great way for them to meet up with other people in their class, create a study group. Job simulations, if you're starting to think about career, we can link you directly to Forge. You might want to help your student explore this. These are virtual internships or virtual job simulations. But then you're connected to the company and maybe at some point you actually want to apply to that company. It's a great connection. I'm thinking notifications. I'm thinking My Docs. So notifications, these are things that personal to do that Ruthie added about going to tutoring. That is there. We'll begin to send surveys and we have other ways to gather information for students. Those would be there. But Ruthie, I think that's a really fast run through of everything that is there. There is a question, Ruthie. I don't know if you have someone ask about how they can get to the desktop version. It's through AU Access. I just thought while we were here, if you have that open or can open that. Okay. So Ruthie is on her version. If you go to My Academics, so right there under that academic portals card, Advise and Assist. And one of the things to be careful with your student is to make sure that they are using the link that says student log on or login. There is one that also says employee login. It takes you to different places and a student doesn't really have anything to do with the employee site. So they need to use that student login site, but they click right there. If they've not downloaded the app, they would be prompted to download the app, or they can move forward in the desktop version. And so it's because Ruthie and I have admin privileges, it's taking her to that page first to ask us which one we want to go to. So that's kind of, Ruthie, did I miss anything?
I think you did great. Yeah, that was perfect.
Like I said, we talk fast and provide a lot of information. So if we've missed anything, so that's really, I want to kind of wrap us up with the idea of some, what I think are good suggestions about how you can support your student. Again, my student came through 2007 through 2011. I told you it'd been a hot minute. And so, and Ruthie has a student right now that is actually part of our dual enrollment program. So we're kind of on either end of that. But maybe right now in this moment, the best thing you could do for your student is to say, hey, when do you register? And, if they have a quick answer, you're going to kind of have a feel that they're doing okay about this advising thing. Or probably. If they look at you with a blank look, okay, the conversation is going to go a little differently so that you can help connect them to what they need to be doing. Next question might be, well, okay, when you register, who's your academic advisor? And have them double check that maybe in front of you if you want to do that. Then ask them if they've met with their academic advisor yet. And I would even say, if they say, well, no, maybe the intermediary question is, well, do you have an appointment scheduled? Because if you don't, we need to see about getting that appointment scheduled pretty quickly. What kind of resources have they used? Have they been to tutoring? Have they been to the writing center? What all have you used? And that way, if they're reaching out for assistance, and because that's what we're really here to do. So then encourage them to read their email. We know that email is not their favorite form of communication. That might be my favorite form, but a couple of generations here, that is not their favorite. But it is the best way for the university to communicate with students at this point. There's a record of that communication for the student and for the university, and for us to keep it secure, within an email server. So the idea is we really need them to be checking their email. I like to tell students, if you check it early in the morning, you check it later in the afternoon, you might actually find a present or a gift in there. I tell students this all the time, and people go, what kind of presents might I find in my email? Well, professor cancels class tomorrow, and they email to say, we're not having class. Bonus is you don't go to an empty classroom or you got to sleep late or do something different during that time to repurpose it. So try to find some value for them to check their email and understand that it's important. I learned as a parent that I needed to be the sounding board for my student. I tried really hard not to say, you need to do this, you need to do this, or I want you to do this. But to be able to sound out questions and to explore opportunities with them, helping them, just discover where they are, but then encourage them to take all of that conversation to their academic advising appointment and have this conversation with someone who does know how to make connections across campus with them. And then we're also kind of teaching them adulting here, right? Because at some point they're going to need to make doctor's appointments and they're going to need to be able to do the other things. So these are really good practice places where even if they fail in making an appointment, we can help pick them up and be that safety net, and then we can just teach them to do it better the next time. And then just remind them, we're not scary, really, we're not. We are here to help them. And again, I would say, if they cannot find help anywhere else, Ruthie and I are right here. We love to be able to help students and make connections. So here I'll just toss out, we don't have it on the slide, but the student can email us at advise@auburn.edu. Truly simple, advise@auburn.edu. I love it. Ruthie's gonna make edits right here live in front of me. So this is how we work. So if you want to encourage your student to email us, I would say too, if your student runs into an issue, you have Kevin's office to reach out to. But if it's about academic advising and you need to ask a question, email us. Now, many times what we're going to do is we're going to continue to try to make that connection with your student so that we can help your student learn to navigate these things. But that's what we have for you today for our content. But we want to go back through the questions. The last question there, Ruthie, since you're in the slide deck there, several people have asked about the timeline that was offered. Right. Let's go ahead and show that so people can capture that.
Sure. And I think people are asking about spring too. So when we look at in the spring, this is what that translates to. They're going to be registering in the beginning of April. for fall. And additionally, if your student is planning to take courses in the summer, they would register for the summer courses at the same time. So,
Okay. So I'm just kind of working backwards because it's what I can see. And so we'll work backwards and then come back down. Dee Dee, that's a great question about online classes. Are they open to all students or only to online, students who are registering for online, for in an online program? For the most part, those online courses are available to any student who meets the prerequisites for the course. A little tricky about how to find whether or not they're an online section. Most online sections have a D as part of their section. Is that right, Ruthie? A D or a DL?
a D. Mhm.
For their section. That's also for students who are not wanting to take an online class to be careful to make sure they're not registering for a section with a D in it or the beginning of the section number. They can make sure that they're not getting in an online class that they didn't intend to as well. So, Kevin, would you scroll up and let me clear out and then we'll come back to the two majors question because we have some great resources there too. So scroll back up so we can get other questions. Let's see, or I can scroll here.
It looks like there's a good question about if students have to meet with their advisor before they're allowed to register in a time ticket question. So thank you for those. I apologize if I caused confusion. So your student doesn't have to do anything to get a time ticket. They've already been assigned a time ticket. It's based on the number of earned hours that they have. So no need to do anything there. What they do need to do is go into AU Access on that registration profile card to find out what it is. They have to actively go and look there to see when it is that they register. And the question about do they have to see their advisor is it depends. Some colleges require advising for their students and others do not. So if they look at the registration profile in AU Access, let me go back there. They will see the student registration profile. So this says advising requirement met. If they were to have required advising and it didn't say that, that's where they would see that to know if that's helpful. So it just depends. You also can see on the advising webpage, going back to how advising works in your college, this will sort of give you a sense of if all students are required to go to advising or not. So that's a great place to go to find out how your student's college approaches that.
Thanks, Ruthie. I think we were able to get all the questions above, where we started, so we can work down now. Ruthie, would you approach or address the two majors or 2 degrees question? Are there any tools?
Sure. Absolutely. I think you might be talking about DegreeWorks, which is our degree audit tool. And DegreeWorks is amazing for tracking one major. It's a little trickier in the display for a double major. And so it is helpful to use the what if feature for the other major to see how your classes are applying there. I really encourage for students who are in double majors to meet with their advisors, both of their advisors, and just sort of go through and they can walk them through as well, just to make sure. So I would make an advising appointment with both advisors for both majors to talk through and just sort of lay those on top of each other, those curriculum plans to do that would be my advice.
And to add to that, this past summer, advisors were given new work, like a worksheet to be able to, to walk through whether or not whatever the grouping is, you're trying to match English and history or what other 2 degrees are you trying to match together, about whether or not those qualify to be a double major or 2 degrees. And so that academic advisor has that information and really is the best person to give them that advice. So thinking about Tiger Scheduler, there is a tutorial. I think that's what Ruthie just pulled up. here. There are videos to watch, handouts to read. But, I like to go back to those Camp War Eagle counselors. Your student had a phenomenal Camp War Eagle counselor in most cases. And those counselors love to keep those interactions and to keep those connections going. So if they go to this video, and Ruthie will show you where she found that, but they still need a little bit of help, I would suggest your student to reach out to their camp counselor and just have that connection back with them. So Ruthie, you want to show where you came to there?
Absolutely. This is so over in the registration and advising card. Let's see. There is information. Honestly, the quickest way is for withdrawal information takes you right there, and you've got the course registration here. They can find a lot of things on that registration card. So it's a great place to find that.
I'm always amazed when I just go to the search function on Auburn's webpage there and type in Tiger Scheduler, and it'll take me, to things I don't really always have to remember the click path to get there. That search feature is super helpful.
Judy, can I add one more thing that came to mind too? If your student has some questions, down here in the bottom section for current students, it'll also say if they have peer advisors or drop-ins. And so those are good tools. Some of our colleges have Zoom drop-ins. We have great peer advisors in addition to the Camp War Eagle counselors. Those are some other resources that you could just sit down and be like, hey, can you just play with Tiger Scheduler with me? They're happy to do that. Great resource.
So I'm kind of watching time a little bit too. You have a student who's considering withdrawing from a class. Always tell students to not, until they have talked to someone, and again, they're going to need to reach out to make that appointment or to reach out by email pretty quickly, to be able to do that. There are just a lot of considerations depending on any population that they're part of, any scholarships. There's just so much. So individual students with individual situations need to talk to an academic advisor. You have given her the very best advice by telling her to go to her academic advisor, and to do it quickly. To do, not that they actually have to have the meeting like, oh, I needed a meeting yesterday. It's that you need to schedule it so you can get the meeting scheduled in time, to be able to drop. So then I want to address, and T is the user there that's talking about majors in degree works not being correct. I would ask you to reach out to Ruthie and to me through that advise@auburn.edu. If you're comfortable with that, we would love to connect and know, not correct under the what if. Reach out and give us some of the what ifs that you just let us connect with you. Because we may be able to help there. Scribing degree works, it can look confusing in trying to read what is scribed, particularly with whether it's 2 degrees or 2 majors. It's just part of the platform itself, and we can help there. Ruthie, I love that you pulled up the calendar. The last day to withdraw from a class this semester and to receive a W grade, which is, there has no penalty for a W as far as a GPA, is November 21st. So it is coming, a little over a month away. If your student waits until the week before Thanksgiving to try to schedule that appointment, it's going to be challenging. So let's make sure that they're scheduling that appointment or reaching out to their advisor by email, to get information, to get kind of that, I don't want to call it a clearance because they don't really need an approval, but they need to explore the consequences of dropping that. And or maybe they don't really need to withdraw if they had certain resources to help if it's a grade issue. Let's see what we can do about getting into some resources for grading. So, any other questions? Kevin, you want to answer that one?
Yes, absolutely. So what I'll do is either this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning, I will send out an email to everybody who signed up, whether you were attending today or not, or you attended part of the time or the full time. You will get that email. I'll have a survey just to evaluate the session, and then also I'll include a link to the recording. That way you can watch it at your own time in case you missed or you only were able to be here for part of the time. Or if you want to share this with another parent or family member you think would be helpful or your student, please do. We'd be happy to have you do that. Well, let's just give a little round of applause virtually for Ruthie and Judith for taking their time out of their day to talk to us. One thing I'll say as well is we do have one last Family Connection Hour session this semester, and that is going to be for study abroad. So we'll have some folks from over at Auburn or abroad coming by just to share some information. If your student is interested in doing that moving forward, it's a great session that you won't want to miss. That is on, let me get the date here, November the 5th at noon Central Time. So feel free to check that out if that's something that you'd like to do. And anything that you'd like to see in one of these sessions moving forward, I'm always open to hear about it as well. We want to make sure that when we ask people to present, that we're presenting what parents want to hear about. So we're certainly open to your feedback if there's any other sessions that you'd like to attend. So once again, thank you, Ruthie. Thank you, Judith. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and War Eagle.
War Eagle. Thanks, everybody.